All right, so this is going to be a fun show today. We had a client email the other day or a little while ago about the differences of planning for retirement and living in retirement. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So thanks for emailing. But this is going to be a fun one because this, and I shouldn't say just fun, I think this has the potential to be a little heavy, very practical, and very real. So what is the massive difference? Like, let's just talk about this before we talk about it. But what is the massive difference of planning for retirement and structuring your portfolio and building income and then hitting retirement and living on that income?
Well, you've spent 40, 50 years saving.
Right.
Your mindset has always been save. And your paycheck was coming from an employer or yourself. And then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I'm done. The employer's not paying me. Now all of this saving, now I have to mentally shift and say, that's what I'm supposed to start spending. And depending on how you have your account set up and how you're planning for retirement, sometimes that means actually selling and seeing those amounts decrease sometimes.
I think a lot of people's security about retirement is tied to how big that number is. And when you start seeing that number go down in retirement, as you have to spend it in retirement, I think it just makes people feel really anxious. Is it going to last? Is it going to be there? What do I do? Can I afford to do this thing that I want to do? It's really scary for people.
And then no reverse. Like, people feel like, well, they can't just go get another job if they need to make more money or a second job. It's like, wait a minute, it's over. And I can't go back. Did I do enough? Like, wait, maybe I shouldn't spend because maybe I'll need it later. Will I get sick? It's a whole different.
How long am I going to live?
Absolutely.
How long am I going to live?
Outlive it? Am I not?
Absolutely.
You know, hey, I don't really have anyone in my family that lives very long, so should I just start spending it, or I don't have, and then you get into like legacy questions. You know?
Well, we're not even touching the whole market fear.
Correct.
Of what happens on the market and how much does that affect my income? Because what we're talking about is the psychological. You go from accumulating, saving, you build up this portfolio, then you're like, okay, now we're getting ready to hit the retire button. Now I'm not sure what's going to happen to my income. In the market falls, there's panic, a new administration, whatever, you know, war, and you're like, whoa,
or that
can
crazy
I
little
spend?
pandemic that happened. We had a lot of clients.
World changing.
Small thing.
We had a lot of clients within the firm that retired in like January, February, and then everything shuts down in March, and they're like,
it's terrifying.
And one of my favorite stories with a retiree before we go into the next step is the whole, do you know how to retire? A lot of people are defined by their jobs and their identity. They don't even think. They're like, oh, I'm just put forward. They know what they're doing. Their identity is their work. They're really darn good at it. They make good money. And now they're in the second half. You did an awesome job coaching one of my clients once. And they were like, I don't know if I could do that. I'm like, well, you gotta live without a job now. I mean, you could go work, but it's going to be different.
For sure.
And you can't let that define you all the time.
So let's talk a little bit more detailed on the actual shift that happens when you go from a stable paycheck to a I'm not sure what's going to happen retirement. You know, let's talk through two things. Let's talk through the typical retiree who retires from the stability of their paycheck to a uncertain market volatility driven. Am I going to have to spend principal? Where's my income actually going to come from? Maybe a little annuities. We know lots of mutual fund. You have that mentality. And then you have our typical client, which retires from the same stable paycheck, but they've hopefully had years and years of stability in dividend income, but they've yet to live on it. You know, what happens?
Right?
So it's like, they know what's happening.
Sometimes they don't even know that they're even receiving dividends because they have it on reinvest, right? So like we really have to point it out in those reviews, and whenever we do the snapshots, like, hey, this is real cash that your investments are generating for you. Right now, we're just reinvesting, but that's the number that we're working toward to help fill your shortfall.
So for that first person that retires on anything but dividends, what is the structural shift for them? Like, what are they going through? What are they feeling? I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but how are they different than the dividend retiree?
I mean, I think their feeling about how their day is going to go is driven by the headlines, right? So if the news is talking about, well, the markets did this or the markets did that, or things are shifting around in the markets, there's some anxiety that shows up with that, right? Can I still do this thing today, like day to day? You're sort of limited based on what's happening in the stock market. Because if there's a big drop, you know that your income is going to be affected by that. You just can't do the same things that you would otherwise. So there's some stress and anxiety.
That whole 4% of what? If the market drops, will my 4% be enough?
Yeah.
And what will my 4% mark be? Should I get out? Should I stay in? I need that 4%.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big
And I think you go from paycheck to portfolio. You know, there's this underlying, you know, I hate my job, I hate my boss, you know, but I love my paycheck.
Sure.
And then you go into, all I have is my nest egg, my portfolio, and I want to love the market, but what's going to happen when the market robs some of my wealth?
Absolutely.
And then you get that whole panic of, do I need to pull out of the market? Which I still hear from time to time with our own clients, like, hey, there's a lot of red. Should we pull? I'm like, you do realize that the money that's in the market is driving your income. And the vast majority of our clients understand that. But when you see a lot of red, there's a whole lot of emotion that plays, even as a manager.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, I'm still nervous. Like sometimes when you go to place that trade button, you know, you're really nervous. And I understand it.
They feel out of control. Whereas when you had a job, you could go work harder. You could get that second job, as we were saying at the beginning. Well, then when you're relying on these markets and what the news say, and do I pull the trigger to get out? Do I pull the trigger to stay in? You feel out of control. Whereas a lot of our clients, like, very much feel in control because they're very successful people. And now they feel like, wait, I'm relying on somebody else.
Well, and not even that control, they understood what they did for a profession, right? So they have this familiarity with what they were doing. There was some comfort in that. And then now they move to this space where they've kind of hired that out.
Right.
And it's like, all right,
no way to say it.
Is everything that we've been talking about for 5, 10, 15 years, is that going to be true?
Well, let's talk a little bit. Let's go in a little bit more detail on that. And I'll call that the mindset shift. Because when you're working, we're going to talk a little bit about budgeting here.
Budgeting.
I'm going to stop myself before I get too deep. But the reality is, you know, you're working, you know, you're making X amount of money a month, which means I can't spend more than X amount of money a month, I'm going to go into debt. And we have the whole credit card balance. And we all know clients are on the range of how they, you know, some spend this much and make this much, and some spend this much and make this much, you know.
No judgment.
And everybody's different, but they all understand the consequences of their spending because of that paycheck. When you retire and you're not on dividends, there's almost this, I'm not sure what it is. What are the rules? The rules aren't as clear. Because in retirement, or when you're working, it's like, I got this much money, and then next month I got this much money again, and things, you know, the cycle repeats itself. In retirement, it's like, well, I can take out, I guess, this much money this month. You know, the market's been good. You know, well I can take out more.
Yeah. We're only going to go celebrate really big this year.
How many times have I heard that in my life?
You know, we're going to dip in a little heavier than we thought, but that's just this year.
Just once.
Inside jokes for financial advisors. How many times have you heard that one?
So many.
Only one time.
Just this once.
But we've had so much growth on our principal. You know, we're just going to.
Just go ahead and take that
principal doesn't build your income. The shares do.
That's right.
And just because they're overvalued, you're still cutting your income.
That's right.
Yep.
That's a whole nother show.
Yes.
But let's zoom in on what would a good rule be specifically in retirement when you're living on income from your portfolio, or what's a good mindset, or what are some guardrails that we can give, you know, some talking points to
when you're
to
in
people.
Income, or when you're praying
when you're
for
in
growth?
retirement.
Well, I think we just got to beat the drum here on you have to know your shortfall. If you don't know the gap between what you already have coming in, whether that be from Social Security, pensions, any type of rental, all the stuff that's already coming in, and then that lifestyle that you're wanting to live on, most people they would just like to maintain where they were. You've got to figure out that gap.
Right.
And then it's, hey, is there a process? You know, is that through dividends? Is it through mutual funds? Is it through annuities? Whatever it is, can we fill the gap so that I can live for how long I want to under that?
Well, one of the things I think that's really important about what Insight does with clients is that the conversations are always driven around income, right? We're looking at income because at the end of the day, most of the time, if you talk to other advisors, if you go to, am I allowed to say other investment companies?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if you go to Morgan Stanley or Edward Jones and you sit down with those advisors, no disrespect, a lot of times they're just focused on, let's just get growth. Let's get growth. Let's get in there. Let's get growth. Let's get growth. And one of the things that I think is really important about the way that we handle that conversation, that we're not just after growth to an indefinite end. We're like, let's translate that into meaningful, thoughtful dollars in your pocket. So as you talk about guardrails, that's what our entire conversation with clients is built around, is to say, let's get you income. Let's put a number to that. Let's build you a plan that you can see what that looks like. And now we're not just growing indefinitely to get to a big old number. We're like, let's make that into income.
We're solving for a specific number that they need, not just this, I need it to grow so-and-so amount.
Or
It's
keeping up with the
specific.
Joneses
Of
of the
course,
S&P.
yes.
Right.
What's
Right.
more?
Yes,
More, like,
exactly.
At the end of the day, you're just worried about, can I translate this growth into enough income?
Into income.
And
Yeah.
back to your point about understanding, they don't actually know what percentage they need. They just think that they need, but they don't understand it. Back to your earlier point.
Well, if I were to pick on what Lee just said, I think what we're trying to do is help people understand the rules.
Yeah.
Because if you look at your portfolio, you've got X amount of dollars in it, and it's generating, let's just say, $8,000 a month of dividend income. That's your paycheck. You know, the dividends, or if it's annuity income or life insurance income,
Real
whatever
estate,
the income
right.
is, unless you're spending principal, the rules are whatever that income is, that's reality. That's your paycheck. And all we're trying to do is help our clients understand, irrespectively or respectively of the market volatility, your balance can do this, but your paycheck can be very consistent in light of that when it's based on dividend income.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of retirees or people hitting into retirement, they don't, that light bulb hasn't necessarily gone off, or they think it's the cake. What you say? I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
Right.
I don't necessarily understand that, but I think the reality
Just
is,
want both, yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
isn't it the same cake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and I guess that relates to this, because if you spend your principal, you reduce your income.
Absolutely.
So there are rules in retirement, because if you quit your job when you're working, you lose your paycheck. Well, if you
course.
spend your principal in retirement, you reduce your paycheck.
Right. Right.
So there are rules to that game, and it's not a game. It's life in retirement. So let's talk about dividends specifically in retirement
Mm-hmm.
and how things change when you're working, or while you're working and you're building money to retirement. Your dividends produce more dividends because
growing
you're
your
reinvesting.
Mm-hmm.
When you hit retirement, now your money is at least a percentage of it, because not all of our clients live on 100% of their income. So you've got clients that have tons and tons of assets. They're producing lots and lots of dividends, and they're living on less than 100% of those dividends.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that second, but let's talk about the client that's spending 100% of their dividends.
Mm-hmm.
What do we need to tell them? Like, where are they at? What's their mindset? What's the difference between pre-retirement working and retirement living?
Well, a lot of times it's that understanding what you can live on without touching the principal, without selling the shares. I don't know if I'm getting where you're going.
Well, this is the time that we get to be raw as financial advisors and say the things that are so difficult to say in the moment when a
Okay.
client's outspending their portfolio.
Right.
What's the advice we want to give
I was
them
going to
right
say,
now?
we don't normally call babies
There's
ugly.
no between the lines here.
Yeah,
Just say
just
it.
say
This is the paycheck.
Yeah.
Yes,
This is what you can
What is
spend.
the paycheck?
Yeah.
Your dividends.
Right.
We can get pretty close to what you're going to make in dividend income based on your investments for this year.
Right.
Here is where it's at. Let's pull it back just a little so there's a buffer.
Right.
We can formulate that anyway. We can have them pay out every month. We can set it up to where it's the same amount.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what you've got to set your budget to.
Right.
And if you don't, you start spending into principal. And when you do that, this number, let's call it's 50,000 this year. If you start pulling through principal, it might be 45,000 next year.
That's
You
right.
do the same thing again. Now you're at 40. Now you're at 30. And now we're just in this death spiral of where we can't keep up. So if you want to live the way that you want to live, right, here's the line.
And be in control. right? And be able to plan it with some predictability and some certainty.
Yes.
It's stick within the income.
Yep.
Stick
I
within
think
the
this
income.
is that point where, when you're in a meeting, or actually before you're in a meeting, and I'm just going to be real. I know most of our viewers are either clients or prospective clients or just investors. There's a difficult spot that an advisor sits in at times where no investor wants to be told no.
Right.
Advisors
My
get
money.
fired,
Yep.
but yet we have a fiduciary responsibility to help guide and help clients understand that there are consequences to spending. Just like when you're raising a child and they're like, Dad, I want that.
Right.
And you're like, but you don't have that much money. And they're like, but you do. And I'm like, yeah, but we're spending your money now, not mine. And when you're in a meeting or no meetings coming up and you're just like, man, they have spent twice as much money this year than they can afford to spend. And which 2 years ago, they did the same thing. And then last year was okay. You're starting to see patterns. And there's almost like there's delicate tact, where at some point you just have to get real and be like, if you're going to run out of money,
Right.
like you're headed for financial disaster.
Right.
And it's so difficult as a financial advisor because you don't want to hurt their feelings. You don't want to have a bad conversation. But you've been here and done this so many times. You see the writing on the wall. And sometimes they can't see the forest through the trees. And you're just like, what's happening right now? Well, like you're in danger territory. You're headed for financial ruin. And you don't want me to tell you no.
Well, and they do a lot. They do. I was just going to say they have you as a seat at the table because they know that they need you to have that tough conversation. But in the moment, and you're looking in their eyes, you're like, you told me you wanted me to have this conversation with you, but I feel like I'm breaking your heart right now. But you're giving me a voice at the table, and I need to be very candid with you. If we keep going down this path, there's a risk that you're going to run out of money. And I will have people go home sometimes and call me back and say, I know that I got a little defensive. But I thank you because otherwise I wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I lived, and I'll add on, a lot of our clients are quite wealthy and they frankly have never been told no. They can go buy mostly what they want. I don't have a lot of clients who don't have what they want. They go out and get what they want and what they need. And when you get to a retirement and you're having to have a tough conversation with somebody who maybe went through a divorce, maybe went through a job loss later in life, maybe lost money on a home or got upside down somewhere, and you're having to look a person who has made a lot of money and has never been told no when it comes to financials, you broke their heart and they need a minute because they've never, and most of the time they're leading people all day long. They're in the boardroom and people are following them. And now some person with curly hair that you thought was really sweet is looking you in the eye and saying, we got to reel it in just a little.
Or a lot.
Or a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I try to have the conversation before it becomes a lot, but you're right. Sometimes it's a lot.
Yeah.
And,
It's a
and they
slippery
do call back
slope.
later
Or you can
sometimes.
be gentle,
Sure.
right? And then sometimes it's like, no,
You got to make sure they hear you.
you've got to, and that's where I love that we have the tools here to actually not just tell, we can
Show.
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
letting them actually see it for themselves.
Oh, that's why
like,
I love Simplicity
here's
for that.
here's what's happening.
Yeah.
Like here's
Yeah.
the real withdrawals.
Yeah.
And here's
Or
where
the
you're
snapshot.
at. The snapshot.
Yeah.
And then you go put that in the plan and like, if this continues, here's where it like this thing inverts.
Yeah.
And now what?
So I think that the whole dividend strategy can be really hard for spenders to resist, right? Meaning you've built a nest egg and now we're getting income off of it consistently, right? And all of that feels really good. I think people who might identify as spenders see that nest egg and they're like, oh, I want a boat, right? Or I wanted this, or I wanted that, or so-and-so, right? It's hard to resist because you see this nest egg that's there. And I think you said it really well to be like, we have to show them that if you crack open this egg, if you start shaving pieces off of this egg, this is what happens to your income, right? But I think sometimes seeing it sitting there, they're like, look, I could get a thing. right? And I agree with you. I think that sometimes that's really hard as financial advisors to be like, I'm so sorry, Mr. Durso, you cannot buy a new boat. Or Actually, I mean, I would never say it that way. I would say you certainly can buy a boat if you would like to. Let's just talk about what your income's going to look like next year and whether you think you can live off of that income.
Especially whenever you have a year that's done very well.
Right.
It's grown 10, 15, 20%.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And they're like, my million just turned into 1.2.
Look at those hands.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pause this show because we've gone 20 minutes already.
Oh man.
And we're gonna just call this part one, which would be fun. So we're gonna shut this show down. Hopefully you've learned a lot today. And then we're gonna pick right back up and just do part two next week. So if you like the show, subscribe to it. We have a Dividend Starter Kit that if you put down in the comments, you just put that down there. We'll send it to you absolutely free. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let's pick this back up next week.